So as a result of this exercise, the amount of data became so large that I needed help, and I needed to connect with somebody in India. I had sporadic information on where this money arrives in India, as the US people would disclose to me, but I had no way of verifying whether it arrives and who uses it and how much disappears and what it's used for. So I started looking for somebody 3 years ago, and that's when Aravindan and I met. And he initially started as a research assistant, and then it was very clear that rather than going all over India randomly, we should pick Tamil Nadu and just focus the whole book on Tamil Nadu. So we have a very strong. And what we concluded is that there are certainly genuine gripes that Indian minorities have. We are not denying that. And there are certainly situations, a lot of situations where these gripes have not been properly addressed by the Indian authorities in the Indian nation state. The question is whether the right thing for them to do is to bypass the Indian system and get a maa-baap who is somewhere else. And what should be happening to a minority when it comes under the governance of a foreign nexus? Does it remain a minority? Should it be entitled to minority privileges? And the best example I give is if you came across a McDonald's restaurant somewhere in Delhi or some part of India, and it has 20 employees, you would not think it's a minority establishment. You would not look at the minority in isolation in a local context and say, in this local context they are a minority because there's 500 restaurants around them, there's just one of them with 20 employees. Now, in the case of goods and services of a commercial nature, the supplier has some responsibilities. Fund transparency. He has to be full disclosure. Second, if he's a subsidiary of a foreign entity, he cannot be treated as a minority. He's part of a multinational majority. So what happens if you have a religion with over 1 billion people and it's highly organized in a central corporate structure? Is it not another multinational? So there's truth in advertising, there is, you can't have slander against your competition. Then there are laws which say that you cannot prey on old people or sick people or juniors or people who are incompetent and sell them some long life insurance policy and so on, because the person is not mentally competent to make that choice. So in any conversion, you should apply the same policy and say that weaker sections. I wrote a paper 10 years ago called a business model of religion, and I did not name any religion, and I said these are the laws that apply to businesses in the United States: the Federal Trade Commission law, the Securities Exchange Commission law, the transparency laws, and I have it. I can supply it to anyone they want. And I said if all these laws which apply to the corporate sector were also to apply to multinational religions, what are some of the things they would have to do differently? So every time I hear this argument about freedom, we are people who believe in freedom, and therefore we should be allowed this freedom, I tell them that yes, Coca-Cola also has freedom, IBM also has freedom, Microsoft also has freedom, but they have to operate in a certain structure of responsibilities, and that's not a violation of free market. That is how a free market remains healthy. So if you want the religious free market to be really a healthy market, you must enact some similar principles of responsibility to go with the freedom. I have done a comparison of China and India vis-a-vis the US pressure on human rights. Every year, US publishes a human rights report on different countries. Within 10 days, China publishes its report on the US human rights. They have a machinery. They have a machinery. Professionals in the study of India. I guess. And people have no clue. This is how it is. People have no clue. But the China analysis annually on the state of China studies in the United States tells you there's so many thousand people, they're allocated in these topics, they study this, some are here, some are there. It's like they're really doing a mapping. They're studying them and they're studying them. They're both studying each other. Without implying there's a conspiracy against us, we can just look at the pattern that exists with respect to other countries. Certainly, the Americans are not dumb about all that. I mean, maybe they cannot implement successfully, but they're trying and they're spending tons of money in all these other countries where there's trouble to make sure that they got a relationship with this tribe and this leader and that. Now in Egypt, whatever is going on, the US is involved. It has both factions. it is not speaking with one mind. There is the pro-Mubarak and the anti-Mubarak. Both are part of the US, and it may go one way or it may go the other way. So this, I think, responds to, I hope it does to some extent, to the issue of whether this book will curtail freedom of speech, because I hope it won't. I hope it will trigger new kinds of speech from an Indo-centric point of view to counter the Eurocentric point of view, so that, like there's a China-centric point of view today, there's a France-centric, there's a Russia-centric, why not also an Indo-centric point of view? So the real question which I think Upendra asked that I want to ponder, and is the M question, the Mohandas question. I think it's a very, very interesting question. What would a Gandhi do? And here I'll just put in a plug for my next book. This book is a description of a problem. I'm not claiming that in this book I'm solving the problem. But I've been working in parallel several volumes. And the next one, which is almost ready, it's with an editor who says it still needs some more work, is in fact on the very concept of nation, as I see it, which does not fall into either side, into either extreme. It's neither the homogeneous religious right back to some ancient imagined golden era which is not achievable or realistic. A paradigm which I think is the true essence of Dharmic civilization, which is able to keep the diversity, a huge amount of diversity. All these internal fault lines will sometimes continue, sometimes they'll keep having fight, they'll have accusations, counter-accusations, but India has a history of sorting things out. We are not saying that all the problems are created by outsiders, and we are not saying that if the insiders, one is right, the other is wrong. We just don't want meddling. We want these problems to be sorted out internally. If we have billionaires who can invest all this money overseas, we can certainly look after our poor people ourselves. We can create our own NGOs, our own foundation. We can do that. And if we can have legal systems to give proper human rights ourselves, why do we need to go elsewhere? So that is kind of our message.